Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Conscious Capitalism Workspace in Arizona, here at Max 6 and Tempe, Arizona. I'm Karen Nowicki, studio partner for Phoenix Business Radio and host of today's show. And I'm very excited to welcome back a dear friend, Tisha Pelletier, Chief Experience Officer with Tisha Marie Enterprises, LLC. Welcome, Tisha.
Thank you, Karen.
So fun to have you back.
I know.
It's not often, but when we do get to connect, it's always wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love this.
And so Tisha is in the studio with me today, but coming to us through Zoom via the large screen on our wall is Joseph Rosales. He's the founder and CEO of the Performance Group of Arizona. Welcome, Joseph.
Hey, thank you for having me back again, Karen, and good to see you, Tisha.
Good to see you.
I was just going to say that. You are back with us for a second time. We had the pleasure of getting to know each other on a segment not too long ago with another very dear friend of mine, Kathy Droz. And with her certified, and got to hear about all the great work that you two are doing together. So very appreciative of the opportunity to meet you. And when you and I originally talked about having you on one of the shows, you had mentioned both Kathy and Tisha. And I'm like, well, this is just perfect because I love these people. So we love it. All right. So since I know who the two of you are, I would like the world to know who you are. So let's have Joseph, we would go first, please. Just give us a little introduction about yourself and the Performance Group of Arizona.
Thank you, Karen. And again, thank you for having us on today. And my background is a little bit unique. And I've been 35 years as a performance coach, working with businesses and people in the business to help improve leadership, effectiveness, and build high performance teams. As you know, business rises and falls on the performance of their people. And so we've been fortunate enough and blessed to work with a lot of different types of companies, helping them to improve the performance of their business by improving the performance of their most important asset, their people.
I love it.
Yeah.
And how did you and Tisha connect?
Well, that was interesting. Thanks to my beautiful wife of 34 years, who were here in Palm Springs celebrating our anniversary, and we've been here 4 or 5 days. And she first invited me to Tisha's Social Connect there in Tempe, and enjoyed it so much, and so enjoyed the way Tisha had built the program and had a non-networking connection event, because it wasn't one of those events where people just hand out cards and hope that something sticks and they get a deal out of some connection. Tisha was really all about connecting people. So I liked that so much, and we hit it off so well. We were planning a series of leadership summits in Phoenix, Dallas, Chicago, Philadelphia, and LA for 2019 or 2020, starting in March 2020. I had met Tisha in 2019, and so I was so impressed with her and her ability to connect people and to MC her events. I hired her as our MC for our events, and she was going to travel around the country with us. And bringing it all together and helping to promote it and doing just her amazing job that she does with connecting people. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to transition to other things. But we became friends, and Tisha is now actually starting to work with me on helping to develop my personal brand, because I come from a corporate background, and our background is very much about the company. And Tisha's been encouraging me, and she encourages her other clients to really work on their personal branding. And so we're in the early stages of that, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that introduction and background. And it's a perfect segue to have Tisha speak a little bit about personal brand. Why do people need a personal brand, and why is it now more important than ever? And Joseph kind of teed it off beautifully for us.
Well, I like to share a little bit about my story too, because as Karen knows, I've been an entrepreneur since 2004. She and I have gone through several pivots
Both of us
together throughout our lifetime together. And I remember when I was in that midlife crisis stage of my life
We've
of
also been through that a couple of times together.
we have. When I was coming off the Mom Entrepreneur of the Year event, which Karen was my very first Mom Entrepreneur of the Year back in 2010. And really just feeling like I didn't know what that purpose was anymore. I just knew that the things that I was doing wasn't really what I wanted to be doing anymore. And I think a lot of us find ourselves in that. And I had to pull myself back up. I hired a business coach and she said, "You know what, Tisha, you pivot quite a bit and I know you're stuck right now. The best thing you can do is build a personal brand." And I mean, Joseph knows this story. I was like, "No." I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to be the face. I just want to hide. Like so many of those things. I was dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome at that moment. But after months and months of thinking about it, I came to the realization that, you know what, she was absolutely right. If I'm building a personal brand, I am able to pivot under that umbrella without losing the very essence of who I am. And I get to control my own narrative. It's not Facebook or Instagram or any of those places that share my story. It's no, I get to have the control of what I share, who I am, what my purpose is, and so on. And so that was how I got started. And I've had to go through the journey on my own, figuring out how to build this personal brand and what I stand for and how do I want the world to see me as. That I'm starting to see now, especially in the pandemic, so many people are in that same space that I was in. They're in the stuck space. They've lost their identity. They've lost their title. They've lost their jobs. And they're like, how do I rebuild? I was like, well, the best thing I can tell you is to build your personal brand.
Yeah. Madison, my daughter, who I know you had a chance just to get
Mhm.
to know a little bit through our experiences together, she's worked for Red Bull since she's left ASU.
Right.
And she's also a little bit of an Instagram influencer, just with her own personal brand. And when she got this job with Red Bull, I said to her, listen, everything that I've learned with all these wonderful interviews with experts like you, I said, do not let that part of you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's style and it's lifestyle and food and that sort of thing. And just, being a young 24-year-old kind of thing. It has proven to be very important for her as she's continued to be a representative of a big company like Red Bull as well.
Right.
Companies like that don't want you to lose your personal brand as well, as long as it's in alignment, of course, and makes sense for what you're doing for them as well. But it's everything. And for these folks who are older than my 24-year-old, Joseph alluded to this a second ago, maybe I'm overstating, but when we've been part of a corporation, either a business we've owned or an organization or an employee, whether we're executive leadership all the way down to, on the ground floor of things, it doesn't matter what age, does it, in order for us to have a brand, because social media is so much a part of how we interact.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, we get to put it out there and say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I offer, my clients and customers, that sort of thing. Would you agree with me then, like the examples I've been giving, that even if you are part of an organization or corporation, if you're looking to pivot and change, it probably is a great idea to establish a personal brand?
Absolutely. Because as I shared, that company like Red Bull, those titles, we may not have that forever. I mean, how many people have been let go in this time frame too? And the one thing you have is your personal brand. And I always say, how do you stand out in a sea of sameness? And it's so clear, when you figure out who you are, what you stand for, what are those core values, the opportunities really start to come your way because it's in so much an alignment with who you are.
I'd like to just add one little thing to that, because we've all heard the adage, people do business with people, not companies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that relationship that you have within a company that really builds the brand of that company. And so when you reverse that a little bit, if you don't have a personal brand and you're part of a larger company, why you? Why do business with you? And so when you're whether you're in a brand, you need your personal brand within that brand.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I just did a segment an hour ago with ESGR. They are the employer support of the Guard and Reserve. So they help, and it's all volunteer organization out of DC. It's been around forever, I think early 70s. And they work with employers and employees for the servicemen and women who have to go and serve our country and leave their job, right? A lot of times back in the day, people would come back and they wouldn't have a job. And so they're trying to help bridge that gap to make it a comfortable situation for the employer and the employee. And I'm sharing this because while we're on air, there's a gentleman, Steve, who's been part of this organization for a very long time. He was not military himself, but he is now kind of the voice and the face of this organization. And Dan, who hosts the show, invited him as a guest. And he said, to me, Steve is ESRG, or excuse me, ESGR. And that really is the point, right? If I go to a restaurant and the hostess or my waitress or whoever it is, whoever's, serving us, to me, that is that location, right? So, of course, we're the brand.
Right. Exactly.
What pitfalls, Tisha, might we find in personal branding? Are there mistakes that people can make?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I share this quite a bit, that I think that when people are starting a personal brand, they haven't yet done the hard work first. They haven't yet laid the foundation. They go straight to, I better get on social media. Everybody tells me to get on social media. And then they confuse their audience because they're not yet clear themselves on who they are, what they offer, what they stand for. And to me, that's that first impression. You get out there, people are either going to be like, I like this person, I want to keep following this person and get to know this person and actually create the connection. Or they're going to be like, okay, I don't really understand what this person's about. It's not clear that they even know what they're about. So I always say that presence is the last thing I teach people in personal branding. It really stems to what's that purpose first and building those building blocks. I do this challenge and people are amazed at just the assessments that they go through, like the Myers-Briggs test. So it's what's your why? It's like we know what our messaging is, but we don't. And once you see it right there in your face, you're like, okay, these are the things I either need to work on or these are the things that I need to keep putting out there. And it's a foundation that people are missing on how to build their personal brand.
You've mentioned purpose. You mentioned presence. I know that you have kind of trademarked it. Maybe that's not the right word, but 7 Ps for personal branding.
I have. And it was really an easy way for me to be able to teach it because I like that alliteration of here are those 7 Ps. And I take people through a process of here's the foundation, just like building a house, just like creating a plan. You have to build from the ground up. And so I start with your presence, or not your presence, your purpose. What's your purpose? So those are all of those assessments that I'm pulling in because it really does lay the groundwork for everything to come on top of that. So what's your purpose? The next thing is what are those pillars? In other words, what are those core values that we were talking about? What is it? What are those legs that you stand on? And from there, what's your passion? Because so many of us, and this is when you asked me about the biggest mistakes, so many of us want to keep our professional life separate from our personal. And that is hard.
I don't know what that's like. I'd be one person who doesn't do that.
I know, but so many of us are like, I just want to talk about professional, career, like this is what I do. And I'm like, okay, but you have a whole personal side of you and people want to see the human element of you. They want to see that come out. They want to see if you have kids, great. Talk about your kids.
Love your dog,
If
bake
you,
bread,
yeah,
whatever it
if
is.
you bake banana bread, one of the best posts I had was that I baked banana bread. I was like, I love banana bread. I give this out to people. It gives you a sense of, I like her. I like that she's not all about business and pitching and sales and all of that. So your passions, if you love Zumba class, talk about it. The next thing is your personality. What does your personality say about you? And I say video is so big. If you're doing video, if you're trying to get your presence out there, video is such a way to go because people do really get a sense of who you are just in that 1-minute clip. Whatever it is, they can sense your personality. I've been told time and time again, wow, you have that infectious personality. And I was like, thank you. I'll take it.
And you've worked on it. That's naturally who you are, but you've also honed that craft.
Yeah. Like I have no caffeine in my system. I drink decaf. So the fact that I still have an infectious personality is like, I'm going to own that. Yep. Own it. The other thing is then you get into your prospects because so many of us, here's another common mistake. We're talking to everybody, but we're talking to nobody. We haven't yet honed in who's that niche? Who are those people that we really love to serve? Going into it from a server mentality, we don't have that honed in yet. And then from there, talking about products and programs, and then your presence is the last step of, okay, now that you've got that dialed in, what are we going to do to put you out there so that you start standing out when everybody else is blending in?
So, Joseph, I want to kind of turn it to one of the last things that you said as you were introducing the relationship that you and Tisha have kind of forged together. You mentioned that your company, right, has been out there and present. And what have you learned from Tisha as it relates to, being a personal brand as well and bringing yourself as the leader into that space as well? Are there some nuggets that you would be willing to share?
There's a whole mine full of nuggets, and some of them are simple in that. Tisha surprised me one day when she said to me, she says, "Joseph, I got to tell you, I'm on social media all the time, and I don't even really like, and I don't want to use the word don't like it because she engages it so well. But she says, it's not because I love it. It's because it's important. And people can't know who you are and what you do and if they like you unless you put that out there. And it's interesting because between my assistant, Alex, and Tisha and Hannah, who is designing our digital courses, they're all every week saying, don't forget to post your videos. And it's 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I discovered while I was here, my wife and I were sitting out on the patio, and I said, babe, I think part of my challenge with engaging social media or any of the video type things that I should be doing, and I'm doing somewhat now, is I'm kind of a private person. I like private. I didn't post when we got here. I haven't posted our rounds. I haven't done any of that. My wife has done some of it. And I'm like, why is that? And I think I mistake privacy with something that it's maybe not, because it's not you have to share your private life, but people are interested in that you're celebrating your 34th anniversary. Mm-hmm. Interested in that you open, like Tisha said, don't forget when you get your books, when you open the box, take some short video and say, hey, here they are, the press. And I did that. And it's like, see how simple is this stuff? Some of it's so simple, but we wait for it to be perfect. We wait for the lighting to be perfect. We wait for the sound to be perfect. We wait for the message to be perfect. And it's never perfect, and we never get started. So Tisha's really been helping me, along with a couple of other people that are on my team, that to just do it. Just post something about 30 seconds. We can all do a 30-second or 60-second video. And then it just, I don't have to post it. I just give it to my assistant. She posts it.
Right.
It's really a lot easier than we make it. We come up with these self-conceived blocks about why we can't do something. And I said to my wife just a little bit ago that, we've all heard good is the enemy of great, right? It's good enough, so we don't make it great. Well, perfect is the enemy of progress. Waiting for it to be perfect before we do it, and it's not perfect. Just do it, and then you'll figure it out along the way. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes perfect sense. You mentioned just very subtly that you have a book, so I want to focus our attention on that for a few minutes. I love the title, "The Leader of You." Tell us a little bit about what prompted that title.
Thank you. My first book was Customer Service as a Contact Sport. I wrote that in 2005.
Such a great name for that book, too.
Great name.
And so names, I think, of books are important because they have to kind of tell part of the story. And in 35 years of developing leaders and managers and teams with companies, it became really apparent to me at some point back 10, 15 years ago, that none of this happens. None of the great things we're going to talk about, none of the great ideas, processes, programs, initiatives are going to happen. They're not going to be executed if we don't have the support of leadership in a company. Because you can preach a great message and you can give people great ideas about how they can improve their performance. But if you don't have buy-in from leadership, if leadership doesn't see it right, if leadership doesn't engage it right, if leadership doesn't support it right, then it's really never going to take hold. There's never going to be traction in the business, and leadership and results are going to be separated by this large chasm of disconnection. So the leader of you, the subtitle of the book is, you can't be an effective leader of others if you're not first an effective leader of self. And we all know people who are in charge, but they're not great leaders. They're not effective leaders. They're not even good leaders, but they're in charge. It's their company. They're the boss. And they do their best to tell people what to do. But telling people what to do and leading people to do it are two very different things. And we all know somebody who maybe they're in our life somehow as a client or an associate or a company we do business with, where you see a lack of leadership. You see people disengaged. You see people that just don't quite follow the vision for the business because maybe they don't know the vision for the business because the leader never shared it. So the concept of the book, and by the way, when you look at a book like this, and here's the cover of it. When you look at a book like this, I purposely have designed this book to be under 50 pages.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So people can read it and get it and do it. And there's 3 steps to this. So the book is the first step, the digital course is the second step, and the group coaching is the third step. Because I'm all about results and performance. That's the name of the company, the Performance Group, because we put the word performance right in the middle. And if you got people, you got process, you got performance. And if you perform what you do at a high level and you have the right people doing it and your processes are optimized, you're going to have better results. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited about the book because finally I've taken the time, and COVID was good for me because when I started pivoting back in March from our live events, because 90% of my business was all live events and coaching and things like that, we started looking at digital formats, and we started the process of developing this. And now we've got a process where we can turn out a book and a digital course every 3 months. And so that's exciting because we're bringing information to people in a way that they can use it and then they can implement it. Because you've heard me say this before, Tisha, many times probably, knowledge does not change behavior.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Know and not do.
Yeah.
They can know and do and not do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's all about helping people to see it and do it at a higher level so you get higher results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actionable. And
Right.
what a great way to be concise and precise and narrowing
Sure.
all the wisdom and the knowledge that you have for this particular subject around being the leader of you
Right.
into a book that's very tangible
Mm-hmm.
and digestible, with, of course, the opportunity to do the workbook, the activities, as well as join the coaching program. Let's stay on the topic of the book for just a little bit longer. You talk about a lot of what helps a leader become an even more effective leader. I notice in the book you start with leadership reflection, and then you also move on to leadership blind spots and leadership mindset. Can you tell us a little bit about each of these topics?
Sure. Well, we talk about reflection because reflection is a tool that leaders, well, anybody can and should use, but especially leaders, to reflect back on the results they're getting, the people they're developing, the motives they use, the processes they enact. Because, how, as a leader, you need to be the first person to reflect back on how did it work? Did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish? If not, why not? What could we have done better? A leader has to be reflective about the results they're getting, but also as themselves. How am I as a leader? Do I find myself reacting instead of being proactive in situations? Do I find myself sometimes bursting out in frustration at people? Do I choose my words carefully and strategically to move my team forward? It's a lot of reflection that has to happen. And the thing that stands in the way of being, I think, highly effective as a leader is the same as highly effective as a person, is something we call blind spots. And we have blind spots in our cars. We know where they are. We know how to look around them. And if you've ever seen that blind spot in your car, whether it's near your mirror or your back quarter deck, something's there, but you can't see it. It might as well not be there because you can't see it. It's the same in leadership. It's the same in our own behavior. We have blind spots that we can't see. And it's not that they're not there. It's just that we can't see them. So there's a process that we suggest in the book and in the course about how you discover what those blind spots are so you can work on them, because you can't fix something if you don't know it's broken. And then when you move through reflection and blind spots, and we talk about leadership mindset, did a lot of research. I also have the opportunity to coach and facilitate leadership and management programs for Rutgers School of Business. They're located back east. They're one of the larger business schools in the country. And we have cohorts all over the world. So I get to coach people in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia, in Canada, in Nassau, Bahamas, in Egypt, in Europe, all over. And what's interesting to me is that as I've been doing this, I guess now about 7 years. And what's interesting is the challenges for leaders are the same, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of their culture, regardless of their business line. The challenges are always the same. How do I find great people, bring them onto my team, train them, develop them to do the job at the highest level, and then lead them to that next level of performance that really takes a good team and makes them a great team? That's business. And it doesn't matter whether it's real estate or financial services or automotive service or any business where you are gathering people together to achieve a common objective. You need good leadership. That makes sense, right?
Oh, yeah. Your thoughts, Tisha? You've shown up so much in the years that I've known you as a mentor and a guide. Even if you didn't have the word coach in front of what you were doing, that's people are always drawn to you for the very things that Joseph is sharing. So as he's talking a little bit about the book and what you know about, of course, Joseph and his company and his leadership, what do you have to reflect on or add to this conversation?
I would say, I mean, I love what he named the book, of course, The Leader of You, because it's so big to start with who you are first as well, because that is going to draw in the right types of people. And it's so much in alignment too with the personal branding, because I'm talking about when you know who you are, then the right people come to you. Like even today, I opened up my LinkedIn and I had a handful of people who are like, I see you, I see that you mentor, and I really want you to help me get to where I need to be.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not going out chasing people.
Yep. You're just showing up,
I'm
doing your
showing
thing
up.
with clarity.
hmm
Yeah. Leadership is everything.
hmm
Would you say it's everything even for somebody who might be in a middle management position for a large corporation? I mean, is this just for C-level executives and business owners, or is this a conversation and an opportunity to be self-reflective no matter what role you play?
And the great question, and it's for everybody. In the very beginning of the book, there's a page. I don't know if you can see this.
This book is for all who lead.
Mhm.
That is the only sentence on that page.
That's it. This book is for all who lead. And that lead can be you leading yourself
Mhm.
to a higher level of success in whatever it is you're doing. You could be an independent real estate salesperson, and you need to lead yourself. Sometimes people make the mistake of waiting for others to lead them, and it never happens. So if you're looking to be led and no one leads you, or no one leads you to where you want to go, that's a problem for you as a person, because you're being either not led or led someplace you don't want to go.
Mhm.
Here's a perfect example. I was talking to a young lady, maybe it was 2 or 3 months ago, and she was new in the real estate business. And I asked her, I said, so how's it going? She was, oh, pretty good. She was, I'm on my path to making some things happen. I says, let me ask you a question. Your broker, which would be her boss, how long did he say it's going to be before you become successful in the real estate business? And she said 3 years. There's a magic number in the real estate business that people assign for some reason that it's going to take you 3 years to become successful in this business, because you have to do things incrementally, step by step by step by step. And I said, that's an interesting dynamic that he's placed on you as a set of expectations. He's set her expectations very low, by the way.
Yeah.
hmm
It's going to take you as long to be successful as it takes for you to do the things that make you successful.
Mhm.
hmm
That could be 3 months, not 3 years. And
Yeah.
I know people that get into business and sales, especially car sales, real estate, and they are rocking and rolling. They're at the top of the leaderboard in 3 to 6 months, because they had a different set of expectations. They had a different perspective. When we talk in the book about self-reflection, and we talk about perspective and perception and how that equals mindset, Because people use perception and they use perspective and they use mindset kind of all to describe the same thing, how they feel about things. But they're three very different things. Perception is what I see.
Yeah.
Perspective is how I start to feel about it and how I'm kind of processing it. And I have a little bit of an opinion about it. Mindset is deep. I really feel about something. It's my faith. It's my family. It's how I believe. But it's also how I believe I can be successful. If I think it's going to take me 3 years, then subconsciously I'll do the things that take 3 years. But if I think I can do this in 3 months, lock and load. Let's go.
Right.
Called U Squared by Price Pritchard. U Squared. It's got a U2 on it. And it's a book all about how you can choose to grow incrementally, step by step, follow the process somebody else laid for you, or you can jump over those steps by simply thinking about it differently and applying activities differently to achieve something in a very different scale than people thought was ever possible. And it's the same person that, remember back when nobody had ever run a 4-minute mile in the history of the world?
Right.
And then once somebody did it, somebody else said, well, gee, I guess you can do it. And then they did it. Now it happens all the time. It's normal for high performance runners to run a 4-minute mile. And so in business, we get locked into these right now, especially with the pandemic and all the restrictions and all the craziness with politics and social unrest and everything else. We get distracted and we forget that we have a tremendous influence on what we do and what our teams do that could make a huge difference in our results. But we got to see it that way. If we don't see it that way first, we won't do that.
And that skill set does not come naturally to a lot of people, even leaders. You had started at the onset of our conversation saying that, oftentimes there's leaders who are in leadership positions, leading corporations and organizations. And while they're in that position, it's their title. Sometimes they're not great leaders. And it's either because they're an accidental manager or an accidental leader. They just did really well at whatever thing that they did. And they're like, oh, you're leadership material. And they moved them into that spot. So to take it upon yourself to be reflective, to find the right mentors and guides. We have 2 fabulous guides and mentors right here in the studio with us today. And chart your course. And don't let anybody else tell you what that ought to look like. Yeah, what great skills for life, no matter what industry and vertical you're in. I would love. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, there's a chapter in the book and a pretty big piece in the digital course called Leadership Essentials. And there happens to be 21 of them in the book. There's more if you really flesh them out. But there are things like honesty. There are things like integrity. There are things like respect. There are things like vision. And if you're going to be a leader of others, you have to really look at these essentials, what we call leadership essentials, and see where you stand on those. Because with something as simple as respect, a leader needs to gain respect, but you gain respect by giving respect. And if you want people to respect you as a leader, you need to respect them for who they are. And how does empathy apply to that? How does communication apply to that? See, they're all very integrated together, but in the end, a leader isn't a leader unless people are following them, right?
Yeah, right.
So there's all these essentials. It's a very integrated thing. And when we wrote the book at 50 pages, I knew that you can't expand this topic in 50 pages. I'd need a 500-page book. But we know that 80% of people only read 30% of the book because it's too long. So anything we're doing is going to be what's called micro learning now, and it's going to be 50 pages or less, followed with a digital course, followed by group coaching. That's how we'll move forward with the changing habits and changing mindsets and changing results. So,
yeah, powerful. It makes me think of when I'm struggling to get a project done, I'll go into the sprints, right? Just setting my timer and saying, okay, I've got 30 minutes. I'm going to stay hyper focused. So you're kind of offering that same opportunity to just get very micro focused on a particular aspect of leadership through your courses and your books. Really, really great stuff. Powerful. Tisha, tell us a little bit so for our listeners, if somebody is looking to get started to build their personal brand, how would you recommend that they start stepping into it?
Well, I do offer a personal brand builder challenge, which is a free 5-day challenge where it's bite-sized chunks. It's not here, do it all, because you can't possibly do it all. It's going to be taking some time to do it. But there are 30-minute live streams that are recorded and there's homework involved. There's going to be homework just like Joseph. I'm sure he's got the workbook. People have to be working on themselves. It's not just I consumed the information and then I
Yeah.
put it on the shelf and did nothing with it. So that's really where I would start is start to lay the foundation. The challenge is a great way because it's free, it's your convenience, but it's also recorded if people aren't able to make it live so that they can start working on themselves. But I would say the first thing is you have to make that investment. You have to say, I want this. I know I need this, and here's how I'm going to take the action.
I love that you're offering that for free.
Mhm.
So it's an investment of their time
Mhm.
and energy and kind of obviously self-guided. But then the next layer of it is really when you're ready to invest a little further into yourself and get it right, work with someone like you who's an expert who can help shorten that time frame a lot, like of course what Joseph is doing too.
Right. So for me, it was like years of me building this. Well, now I
Mhm.
need a website. Now what does that look like? And who am I? And what do I put on this? And with what I'm saying and what I'm helping people do is we're going to build that brand in 90 days. Like, let's start. You're at ground zero. I've heard a lot of people that have come to me, Karen, and they're like, it's a hot mess. Like, I piecemealed this. I have no idea. I don't even like the logo that I have, the colors that I'm
I'm 6
using.
years in. I've spent this amount of money.
I've invested a ton of money. You're right. And I still don't know where I am and I'm still not ahead. And I was like, well, give me 3 months and let's do this for you. Where you walk out with those tangible pieces, you're not saying, okay, now I need another 6 months to now build this together.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a done with you program. It's not a do it for you or a DIY. It's a done with you because I understand because I mentor so much. I mean, Joseph does a lot with Rutgers. I do a lot with Arizona State University, with also the Cahoots Foundation. So I'm working with businesses all the time. And as we all know, where do people get stuck when they have to actually take the action?
Yeah. Resources in addition to this little beginning set that people can focus? Where can we find you? What other resources do you have available?
Sure. Well, I do a lot of speaking, as I shared. I'm actually speaking at Arizona State University tonight on finishing strong. So I'm excited about that. But my website has a ton of resources as well. I also share a lot of my personal stories. Like Joseph, I'm also an author. So I've written a couple of books, Karen, which you are also in the book too, of just my journey and what I've learned as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a wife, as just a person and the lessons that I've taken away from every experience I've had. So I've actually continued the journey even on my blog, doing quite a few videos too. So my website at TishaMarie.com. And then I'm big on LinkedIn. Like, so I always share, I do a ton of videos. I have a Tisha Talks live series that I do every Tuesday and Thursday where I really am sharing tidbits, some tips and advice, or inviting people on to be a guest so they can also share what they're doing.
Perfect. I'm so pleased to have you back in the studio
Thank
today.
you.
Joseph, if you would also share with us where we can learn more about the Performance Group of Arizona and where we can find the Leader of You book.
Thank you. And before I do that, can I just give a little bit of a little bit more feedback to what Tisha is talking about here
Absolutely.
with the branding, if that's okay for a moment. Um, it's not an easy process, but it's a very necessary process. The questions that she put me through were questions I thought I knew the answers to, and so I started writing them down. I'm like, that's an interesting question. Never really thought about that. But the whole idea of creating a personal brand is very different than creating a product brand.
Hmm.
And I'm used to that, the product brand. But the personal brand is so eye-opening. It's a process that people need to go through if they really want to connect with people, with the market. And it's interesting because we've heard, build it and they will come. You build this website and people come. No, they don't.
No, they
certainly
don't.
don't.
Exactly. And so your brand, build it and they will come. they will if they know about it. And I told Tisha way back when I first started working with her, I don't want to be the best kept secret in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the best kept secret in the market. We were a private brand company for 25 years where we worked with companies as their brand under the radar. We had a closet full of shirts with their logos on it because when we went and did our training, we wore their logo. We didn't have to have a brand because we were hired by companies to be their brand. But now it's different. And when we started to transition, earlier this year to more of a digital online, resource for people, the brand became critically important. And so we're piecing through that now. And we're going to be launching Joseph Rosales Enterprises.
Oh, hooray.
National. So there's all these cool things that we're now working on. But they go down to the colors, copywriting, what's your message? Because if you're not clear about your message, how can you expect other people to be clear about hearing the message that you're not clear about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all that being said, Tisha, you're a blessing to me and many others. So thank you.
Thank you.
So about me, first thing I guess I would have people go to theleaderofyou.com. You can find anything you want about the Leader of You, the book, the digital course, and I think we're adding coaching next week at theleaderofyou.com. My website, the Performance Group az.com is our company website. It's got a lot of my speaking things there and some other resources there. But I'm excited to say we're in a transition period right now where we're going to be condensing some of that and redesigning it. I think the website's in redesign right now. But we have I think the first step for people is to invest $8.95 in yourself. $8.95, not $895. and explore the Leader of You. Just start there. Read that book. It'll take you literally 2 or 3 hours over a day or two. And once you do that, then you'll decide, you know what, there's a lot in here that I need to unpack more deeply. And then they can go on to the digital course. And then they can go on to group coaching if they want. But it's all about getting people to see it differently. And to maybe expand their mindset on some things, and to make some changes that are going to make them an even more effective leader. And this is for those people that already think they're an effective leader. Everybody can be even more effective. You can have an even more effective, be even more successful in your business. You can be even happier in your business.
I think that's an important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
That even if people are acknowledging you and seeing you as a leader and you know that you're influencing and making a difference, there is always room for improvement while we're here on earth.
Always.
For sure.
Always.
Yeah. Love it. And I love that you're both so generous with so many opportunities to get to know both of you professionally and these little side notes, around building personal brand and the way in which you do that so that people are drawn to you. They get to have a taste of what they can learn from you, how they can interact in the communities that you run with and get to know people. And then, of course, make that commitment to work with you a little deeper, a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. The one last question I want to ask, Joseph, and you made me think of this while you're chatting just a moment ago, around the work that Tisha has helped you, build your own personal brand in addition to the Performance Group of Arizona. Talk about legacy. I think you have a chapter in your book about legacy of a leader. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and why that's important to have in this particular book?
Yeah, thank you. I was a person that really didn't talk about legacy much. I mean, my legacy is leaving a nice stock portfolio for our son, assets, a good person, a kind person, a person with integrity, and to live that life ourselves as a family. That's always been my legacy. But when I started really thinking about legacy in business, besides having helped companies make a lot more money and touch people along the way, I kind of started formulated in my own mind that my legacy as a leader, my legacy as a business professional, as a person, is really about the people that I've touched, the people that I've helped to support, to help make them even more successful, maybe a better communicator, maybe being a little more thoughtful, maybe being a little more kind, maybe being a little more on purpose. And so when you think about legacy of a leader, I asked the question in the book and in the course, what is your legacy? what do you want to leave when you're all done, when you're retired or when you're off the planet, whatever your measurement is? What do you want people to say about you? And for me, the legacy is people. And I think for a leader, you need to think about, what are people going to say about you as a leader, as a boss, as an owner, as an executive in your company? What are they saying about you now? And what would they say about you when you're not there anymore? Would they say, well, he was great, she was great, they taught me so much, always believed in me, always empowered me, always enhanced my ability to see things better? That's what I want people to say about me. And that's what I would like people to say about others as a leader. So legacy is important.
Legacy's everything, I
Mhm.
think. And if you haven't asked yourself those questions yet, I don't think the question is why not. It is, how about thinking about it now
Mhm.
and start moving your life and your actions and your thoughts in that direction?
Mhm.
What would you add to the conversation about legacy? Any thoughts as Joseph is sharing?
I am also a big believer in leaving a legacy. And as I shared earlier, I've written a couple of books that have really chronicled my journey of starting a business, having a family, having kids, all of these lessons that I've learned. And earlier this year, I took it upon myself to challenge myself. It was my 2-year anniversary, Karen, of when my last book came out.
It's been 2 years
I
already.
know. February 13th, 2018, I launched the last book, What Are the Odds? And I mean, and even in that story, you can tell that it's very authentic. It's raw, it's real. And so this year I decided that, okay, for the next 52 weeks, unless I'm on vacation on Mondays, I will be writing another story of my life and the lesson that I learned. And
Awesome.
it's everything. It's not just business related.
Yeah.
And so I have 16 more to go. So I've been very diligent and dedicated to this progress and this process. And my daughter, actually, she was 8 at the time, came into my office because I what I did differently is, of course, with the book, I wanted this to be kind of living, breathing video photos of those moments in my life. So there's a lot more visuals attached to it. And every time I put the video up on YouTube, my daughter immediately watches it. The Rule of Life lesson number 102, whatever
Yeah.
it was. And she comes into my office. And here's that mom moment, Karen. She's like, I just watched your video. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to know if my kids will watch that. And I was like,
Oh,
oh my
that's
gosh, is this
legacy.
where I
Gosh.
start to cry? And I was like, your kids, their kids, their kids, their kids. And I was like, I want you to know that I'm not doing this to be the best-selling author. I am doing this because it's important that you know the lessons that I've learned, that you can also take these away, and that, that you can read these stories back to me as I get older because I
Yeah.
might not remember them.
Beautiful.
So it's so important. I don't want people to go, oh, I should have done that. I was like, no, you do it now. Start now.
Yeah.
Like, start
Yeah.
journaling, start writing videos, start doing a video blog, because that is going to be here long after you're gone. And that's how people are going to be like, she was a good person. She was true to her word. She was authentic. She taught me so much just through the stories that she shared.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hey, Karen, can
Yeah.
I add just one thing to that? If there's a word that describes somebody, it would be authentic, and that would describe Tisha.
For
And when
sure.
I first met her, there's this authenticity that just comes from her. She is who she is. And I love who she is. And people that know her love who she is. But that's who she is. If you see her on a podcast, you see her on a blog post, you see her in person, it's the same person. And it's such a refreshing thing, but it's something that you hear that word all the time now out there in social media. People want to portray their best self. They want to be strong and successful and always got it together. And I get that we all want to present our best foot forward. But the authentic side of it is we all make mistakes. We all have failures.
Mm-hmm.
We all have weaknesses, and not that we want to, cogitate on those necessarily. You got to be both, because we have our successes and we have our failures. And I think we learn as much from our failures as we do from our successes.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to be transparent and to be authentic. I think that's what people connect with today.
For
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, it's the very essence of course, the work that I do and why I even opened Phoenix Business Radio X, because I want to hear the stories of people's journey, the success, the failures, as well as the opportunities for them to really up level what they've been doing and all the great things in between. And being authentic makes such a difference. And the older we get, or the older I get, I should speak for myself, but the more I can kind of sniff out when someone is inauthentic,
Mhm.
and I'm out.
Yeah, me
I mean,
too.
and that's not to be rude or disrespectful. It's simply that I know where I'm headed. I know how I'm leading and what my legacy will be here on earth.
Mhm.
And if somebody is not in their beingness enough to show up and give me all of who they have. I don't need to know the deep dark secrets necessarily unless I'm coaching you. But
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
but if you're not showing up authentically, then we're not likely a good fit.
Right.
And it's okay. I'm going to bless you and I'm going to move on.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, this has been
Absolutely.
a great pleasure to connect with both of you today. And Joseph, I want to thank you again for not only, wanting to come on and have a conversation with me about you and the folks you serve and your new book, but also for encouraging us to include Tisha today, of course, and then Kathy Droz a couple of weeks ago. So it's been great to be with you.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. Two amazing women who are doing amazing things in business and in their lives and for others. So it's a pleasure to be associated with them and with you, Karen. I mean, knowing you and getting to know you now over the past month has been such a blessing. So thank you for all the work you're doing and for being who you are.
My pleasure. Thanks for the acknowledgement. Tisha, one more time, share with us where we can find out about you and where you're speaking and your books and all that good stuff.
Sure. TishaMarie.com. It's just my first name, middle name, TishaMarie.com. And you can just find out about the speaking, the books, all of it. And the Personal Brand Builder Challenge is coming up December 7th through the 11th. And personalbrandbuilderchallenge.com is how people can get
Oh,
registered for that
perfect. And then find you on LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
Very good. And Joseph, one more time for you. Where do we find more about your book and you and the coursework, all that good stuff?
TheLeaderOfYou.com is where you'll find the book, digital course and coaching. And then the performance group, AZ.com is our company website. And you'll also find me on LinkedIn, just Joseph Rosales. And when you search for the book, you have to, and you can search, but you have to put my name in, The Leader of You, Joseph Rosales, and it comes up wherever, Amazon, all the
Awesome.
or from our website directly.
Great. Well, you've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Conscious Capitalism Arizona studio right here at Max 6 in Tempe, Arizona. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Owicki. Thanks for listening.